I stood in the soft lamplight of the lakeside cabin's master bedroom, watching Layla unpack her suitcase with that playful grin I'd fallen for 5 years ago. Everything felt surreal, like we were living inside a perfect movie. In just 1 week, we'd be walking down the aisle beneath an arch of sunflowers in a cozy field behind my aunt's barn. The ceremony would be small, intimate, but full of heart. Her parents, Daphne and Greg, had been glued to every detail, from linen colors to the precise shade of frosting on the cupcakes. I let them have their way. It made Layla happy. She'd glowed at every planning meeting, her laughter dancing through the room as she imagined our future. I thought this was it, the beginning of always. But then, out of nowhere, Daphne and Greg pitched an idea that blindsided me. A family trip, just the 3 of them heading to Aspen for a quick getaway, right before the wedding. The timing hit like a sucker punch. We hadn't even said I do yet, and they wanted to spirit her away for a last-minute ski retreat. I didn't love the idea, honestly, it stung. But Layla's eyes lit up at the suggestion. She squeezed my hand and said, "It's just a few days, babe. I'll be back before the rehearsal dinner." I didn't want to be the insecure fiancé, the kind who couldn't give his girlfriend a little space. So I smiled, swallowed the unease coiling in my stomach, and told her to have fun. Looking back, that was the crack. The first tiny fracture in what I thought was solid stone. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and watched her disappear into the terminal, suitcases in tow, her parents close behind. Daphne flashed me one of those tight, too perfect smiles, the kind that hides more than it reveals. Greg just offered a short nod. I told myself it was fine. She'd be back in 4 days, and we'd slip right back into planning mode, wrapped in anticipation. That night, the cabin felt different, quieter, colder, like the warmth had followed her to Aspen. I sat on the couch, the one where we'd spent so many cozy evenings, and stared at the empty space beside me. I flipped through the channels, texted her a quick "miss you already" red heart, and hoped for something quick and reassuring. She responded not long after, "Miss you too." It should have settled my nerves. But it didn't. Sleep that night came in fits, and when it did, it was shallow and restless. I kept wondering, why did it have to be now? Why not after the wedding? Why this sudden trip? The next morning, I woke up to a photo she sent. Layla, by a steaming outdoor hot tub, the Rockies behind her, sunglasses on and smile wide. She looked radiant. Relaxed. Like she hadn't a care in the world. And yet, deep inside, something didn't sit right. Maybe it was the suddenness, or the way her mother had hugged her a little too tightly at the terminal. Maybe it was just cold feet and my brain playing tricks on me. I didn't know. All I did know was that something had shifted, and I couldn't quite explain it. Not yet. 1 week before the wedding, and already everything felt different. Having fun already, she'd texted from Colorado Springs, where her parents had whisked her away for a surprise family trip. I stared at that message for a long time, wanting to feel happy for her, to believe everything was as simple as she made it sound. She looked stunning in the photo she'd sent, wind in her hair, the Rockies behind her, a drink in hand. Layla was always beautiful. But something about it felt off. Like there was a shadow in the frame I couldn't see. I texted back, "Glad you're enjoying it. Tell Daphne and Greg hi." Hours passed with nothing. When she finally replied, all I got was, "They say hi back." No little stories. No photos of what they were doing, or what they were eating, or how weird her dad's jokes were. Layla always shared those things. I tried brushing it off, told myself she was just unplugging, relaxing like they said. But the knot in my stomach didn't go anywhere. By day 2, I was restless. I walked around the lake twice, couldn't focus on work, couldn't even sit through a movie without my thoughts circling back to her. To us. I kept replaying our engagement party, how Daphne had raised an eyebrow at my job in landscaping and said, "Well, it's good that you work with your hands. Every marriage needs someone practical." And Greg, always quiet, had watched me like he was measuring something I didn't know I was being tested for. I didn't understand why they were so insistent she go on this trip, especially now, with the wedding right around the corner. I'd find out soon enough. That doubt I kept pushing aside was about to become a storm. Layla flew back late on Friday, and I picked her up at the small regional airport just outside town. I wore the jacket she said made me look extra fiancé-ish, showed up with a sunflower, her favorite. I expected her to run into my arms. She didn't. Just a soft, tired smile. A brief hug. Then she slid into the car without even glancing at the flower. The whole ride back to the cabin, she stared out the window. I asked how the trip went. Fine. Relaxing. That was all I got. Now, Saturday morning, I stood in the kitchen flipping pancakes, trying to bring back something normal. The smell of maple syrup drifted through the air. She was sitting at the table in one of my old college hoodies, the one she always said was hers now, but even that felt different today. She poked at her pancakes with a fork, barely eating. Her eyes were glassy, distant, as if her body had made it home but her mind hadn't come back yet. "So, what did you all do up there?" I asked, forcing light into my voice. "Go hiking? Hit the spa?" She shrugged. "Yeah. Some of that. Nothing more." And just like that, I knew. She was sitting across from me, but part of her was already gone. 1 week before the wedding, and everything was unraveling faster than I could catch it. No spark. That's all she said when I asked again about the trip. I waited, hoping she'd elaborate, explain, say it wasn't what I thought. But she didn't. Just silence, heavy and tense, stretching between us like a tightrope we were both afraid to cross. Finally, Myra put her fork down, slowly, deliberately, and looked up at me. Her eyes had changed. There was no warmth there anymore, no spark of the girl I'd proposed to in the rain on the boardwalk in Charleston. Just a hard, guarded expression, like she'd been practicing it in the mirror. "I think we should take a break," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it hit like a hammer. I sat there for a beat, staring at her. A break? A week before we were supposed to get married? My chest tightened, but I didn't show it. No yelling. No pleading. I just exhaled slowly and leaned back in my chair. My coffee was still warm. I took a sip. And then I smiled. Not the kind that says, "I'm okay." The kind that says, "I saw this coming." "That's funny," I said, standing and walking to the sideboard. I picked up the manila folder I'd left there earlier, the one Marcus, my old college roommate turned private investigator, had handed me yesterday. I slid it across the table toward her. "Because I just got some interesting info about that little family retreat to Breckenridge." Myra's brows furrowed as she stared at the folder. She hesitated, like it might burn her fingers if she touched it. But curiosity won out. She opened it. The first page was a simple report, Marcus's summary of what he'd found. Names. Dates. Flights. Hotel receipts. And then she turned the page. And the photos started. Grainy but clear enough. Myra by a mountain pool, smiling. At a rustic cafe, sipping wine. Walking along a hiking trail, hand in hand with Theo, a guy I didn't know until now, but whose name I'd seen pop up too many times on her social media likes. Clipped in the corner of one photo, Daphne and Greg, her parents, smiling in the background, completely unbothered. Like they'd helped arrange it. Myra's fingers trembled as she flipped page after page. Then she stopped on one, her and Theo sitting on a bench, her head resting on his shoulder. She looked up at me. "What is this?" she whispered. Before I could answer, I heard the creak of the front door behind her. I didn't flinch. I'd already heard the crunch of tires on gravel and the familiar steps on the porch. Daphne and Greg entered the cottage like they owned it, all breezy grins and fake warmth. "Hope we're not interrupting anything," Daphne chirped, dropping a binder of wedding seating charts on the counter like nothing was wrong. Greg gave me a short nod, eyes unreadable. Myra didn't turn around. She just stared at me, the folder still open in front of her. Her breathing was shallow. The truth was right there. And she knew it. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my coffee in hand, and let the silence do the talking. If she wanted a break, she'd get one. But she was going to be the one explaining why. The moment she walked out the lodge doors with Daphne and Greg, something twisted in my gut, a knot that's still there now. It wasn't just that they pulled her away 1 week before the wedding. It was how they did it, like they were still in charge of her, like I didn't even factor in. Daphne had never liked me. I saw it in her eyes the first time I showed up to dinner in jeans and a flannel. She smiled like it hurt. Always had something to say about my humble background or simple style. "You're very grounded," she once told me, like I was an old truck they didn't know what to do with. Greg was quieter. More observant. The kind of guy who stands in the corner of a room and watches people like their puzzles to be solved, or dismissed. I told myself it didn't matter. As long as Myra loved me, they could think whatever they wanted. But when they sprung that trip on her, just days before we were supposed to say our vows, I should have spoken up. Should have said no. Instead, I hugged her at the airport, kissed her forehead, and told her to have fun. Then I went home to our rented cabin on the Oregon coast and sat alone with the sound of crashing waves and silence that felt too loud. That first night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing, only it wasn't with me. The second day, doubt set in. Not about her, but about them. About why now? What was so urgent? That's when I called Marcus. He's my cousin. Works private security out of Bend, but he does freelance PI work when things get quiet. No questions asked if you're family. "Hey, man," I said. I tried to sound casual. Failed. "Myra's in Aspen with her parents. Can you look into it a bit? Maybe keep an eye out if anyone else shows up." He didn't hesitate. "Say less. You looking for anything specific?" I paused. "Just, if something feels wrong, let me know." 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Marcus had texted, "Check your email. You're gonna want to see this." My hands shook as I opened my laptop. Inside the folder, videos, stills, a couple of PDFs, hotel receipts, restaurant tabs. All time-stamped. All recent. I clicked the first video. Myra, smiling under the mountain sun, seated at a high-end bistro. Her parents across the table, but the guy next to her wasn't family. He had his arm draped casually behind her chair, and she didn't flinch. Theo. That was the name Marcus had scribbled next to one of the snapshots. Tan, flashy, and smug. Like he thought the world owed him something, and like he'd just collected. The worst part? Myra looked happy. Not guilty. Not nervous. Just comfortable. Some rich investor's son. Slick hair, designer sunglasses, fake grin. His name was Eli Whitmore, and apparently he was Aspen royalty. I watched him lean toward Myra in the photos, whisper something, and she laughed. Not just any laugh, her real one, the one that used to spill out when we stayed up too late watching dumb movies in our sweatpants. Now she was sitting poolside in a silk wrap, glowing like she was on a magazine cover, while Daphne clapped her hands and Greg nodded along like they were proud of what they'd orchestrated. I scrolled through more images. Dinners on candlelit patios. Cocktails by the fire pit. Walks through a snowy resort trail, Eli's hand resting on the small of her back like it belonged there. Myra smiled up at him in every shot. And not once, did she look uncomfortable or distant. Receipts were attached. Marcus had done his job well. They'd all stayed at the same luxury lodge, a place with a wine cellar and private saunas. Eli had paid for a couple's massage. Myra had signed the form. One video clip stopped me cold. Eli handed her a glass of white wine, their fingers brushed, and she smiled. No hesitation. No pulling back. I closed the laptop. My hands were numb. My face hot. The cabin was dark, just the glow of my screen and the low hum of the fridge behind me. Outside, the wind whipped along the Oregon coast, but inside, I couldn't hear anything past the pounding in my ears. 1 week before our wedding. I trusted her. I trusted them. And this was what I got in return. No screaming. No dramatic breakdown. Just that slow, splitting crack down the middle of everything we'd built. Like a hairline fracture in glass, silent but spreading. I stood in the kitchen the next morning, leaning against the island with a chipped coffee mug in hand. The same one she always teased me for keeping. I didn't move as the front door creaked open. Myra sat at the table, folder in her lap, flipping through the evidence with trembling fingers. Her face was unreadable, part disbelief, part dawning horror. Then Daphne and Greg strolled in like they were coming back from a garden party. Daphne dropped a binder of sample floral arrangements on the counter. "Hope we're not interrupting," she chirped. I almost laughed. Instead, I sipped my coffee. It was bitter. It fit. Myra didn't say anything at first. Her eyes darted between the photos, Eli handing her a drink, the dinner dates, the spa. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was sharp, cold. "What is this?" she said. But not to me. She was staring at Daphne, whose smile had gone tight. Greg stayed glued to his phone, scrolling like this was beneath him. "We just thought you should meet someone new," Daphne said lightly, waving a hand. "You rushed everything with him. We didn't have time to show you other options." Other options. Like I was a pair of shoes they didn't like the color of. Too rushed? They had months. Months to speak up. But they waited, until now. Until this. Until they thought they could rewrite the ending. And I was done being quiet. I set my mug down hard, the clink of ceramic on granite sharp in the thick silence. Myra's head whipped toward her mom, her cheeks blazing. "Meet someone new? Are you serious?" she said. Daphne gave a light shrug, the kind you'd use if your entree came with the wrong sauce. "We thought you'd like him. Eli's a solid match. He's successful, kind, connected. We didn't get to weigh in before, so we figured." "We?" Myra cut her off, voice rising. "Who's we? You and Dad?" Greg finally looked up from his phone, his face as unreadable as ever. "We just wanted to see you happy," he said, like that explained all of it. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I laughed, loud and bitter. It bounced around the cozy kitchen like a grenade. "Happy?" I stepped forward. Myra's eyes flicked to mine, wide, wet, scared. "You think dragging her off a week before our wedding to throw her at some rich Aspen trust fund clown is about her happiness?" Myra flinched. I wasn't done. "You dressed her up, lined up dinners, beach strolls, champagne toasts, like she's a damn debutante being auctioned off." I turned to Daphne, pointing straight at her. "And you? You're standing there acting like it's normal to pimp out your engaged daughter." Her forced smile vanished, lips tightening. "Don't be vulgar," she snapped. "It wasn't like that. We just gave her an option." "An option?" Myra's voice cracked. She shoved the folder away, papers slid across the table, photos fanning out like playing cards. "I'm getting married. I didn't ask for options." She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the hardwood. She turned to me, eyes pleading. "I didn't know, Leo. I didn't know they planned any of this. I swear." I stared at her, trying to find the girl I loved in her expression. Did I believe her? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But those images, her laughing, Eli's hand on her lower back, her not pulling away, they were etched into my brain. "You didn't know," I said, slowly. "But you didn't stop it either, did you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Daphne jumped in, sharper now. "Oh, please, Myra. Don't play the victim. You had fun. We all saw it." That landed like a punch. I turned back to Myra. Waiting. Hoping. needing her to deny it. She didn't. She stood there, fists clenched, eyes glued to the floor. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. "Go that far?" I stepped toward her. "Like what?" "Like letting some guy your parents handpicked cozy up to you while I sat here thinking you were sipping cocoa with your mom?" She flinched again. "You let them take you. You let them parade you like I wasn't even real." Greg finally cleared his throat, setting his phone down. "Let's not blow this out of proportion," Greg said, voice low and calm, like he was mediating a business deal instead of unraveling his daughter's relationship. "No one forced her to do anything. She could have said no." I turned toward him, slow and cold. "And you could have stayed the hell out of my relationship. But here we are." Silence. It settled over the living room like thick fog, claustrophobic and sharp. Daphne crossed her arms with practiced elegance, lips pressed into that same thin line she wore when pretending nothing was wrong. Greg, already checked out again, looked back down at his phone. Myra just stood there, caught between us, her arms limp at her sides, eyes moving like she was looking for a door that didn't exist. I took another sip of coffee. It was cold. Bitter. Perfect. They wanted to pass this off like it was no big deal, like the photos scattered across the dining table weren't a betrayal mapped in ink and pixels. But I wasn't letting it slide. Not this time. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she turned toward her mom. "Are you saying you flew me out to meet someone else, a week before my wedding?" Her voice cracked halfway through. She was still hoping it was all a misunderstanding. Daphne didn't even flinch. "Don't be dramatic," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear like Myra had just spilled juice on the carpet. "We didn't make you do anything. We just wanted you to have options." Options. They kept saying that word like it was noble. Like it wasn't cruel. Like my girlfriend was a listing on some matchmaking spreadsheet. Greg finally spoke, tone dry as sandpaper. "Look, Myra. You rushed into this. You didn't give us a chance to weigh in. We were just thinking about your future, long-term, for the family." A hollow laugh punched its way out of my chest. Not loud. Not wild. But ugly, raw. "Long-term?" I echoed. I set my mug down with enough force to rattle the table. "You think long-term means setting up your daughter with some suit like she's applying for a board position?" I turned to Myra. Locked eyes. "And you, what? You just went along with it?" Her face turned pale, lips slightly parted. She looked like she'd swallowed ice. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then her head shook, fast and hard. Her hands went up like she could physically ward off what was coming. "I didn't know, Leo. I didn't know they were doing this." Her voice wavered. Desperate. But it didn't land like it used to. I stepped closer. "Just one pace." "Didn't know what, Myra? That Eli kissed your cheek while your mom snapped a photo? That they had you sipping champagne and grinning with him like I didn't exist back here?" She froze. Her eyes wide. I could see it, she was replaying the moments, right then and there. Every one I'd seen, burned into my memory from that folder Marcus sent. "I didn't," she started. I cut her off. I held up the photo. The photo. Eli's arms snug around her shoulders. Her looking up at him like he'd told the best joke in the world. And behind them, Daphne. Grinning. "Explain this, Myra," I said, my voice low. "Look me in the eye and explain it." She didn't. Because she couldn't. "You didn't what?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "You didn't smile? You didn't let him get close? You didn't enjoy it?" Myra stared at the photo in my hand. Her arms fell limply to her sides, fingers twitching like she didn't know what to do with them anymore. Her mouth opened, her breath catching in her throat like something was about to break loose, screaming, sobbing, maybe both. But before it could, her phone buzzed on the table. The sharp vibration shattered the moment. She jumped, glancing down at the screen, and I caught the name, Leona, her best friend from back in Colorado Springs. Myra fumbled to pick it up, reading the message out loud, her voice cracking. Eli's still in town, bragging that you two were meant to be, that your parents promised him everything. The words thudded in the air like a dropped weight. She looked up slowly, her eyes locked on Daphne like she was seeing her for the first time. What does that mean? She whispered. Daphne didn't flinch. Just tilted her head with that same socialite calm. We may have encouraged him a little, she said lightly, like she was admitting to lending someone a pen. But he misunderstood. We invited him to dinner. A small gift here and there. Nothing serious. Myra's jaw dropped. Her face twisted in disbelief. You promised him I'd leave Leo? Daphne shrugged, like it was a minor miscommunication at brunch. We wanted what's best for you, sweetheart. Eli's a catch. We figured, once you saw that, you'd understand. I didn't move. I just stood there, arms crossed, the air thick with betrayal. Greg glanced at his watch, already looking for the exit, like this was a meeting that had run long. Myra turned to me, her voice small. I didn't know, she said again, quieter this time. Her eyes searched mine, full of guilt, panic, and something else I couldn't name, maybe hope. But I said nothing. Because even if she didn't know the whole plan, she'd still gone along with it. She'd smiled at Eli. Laughed with him. Let him close. Let them all do this while I was here thinking she was with family, safe, not available. The room fell quiet again, except for the faint buzz of another message from Leona lighting up Myra's screen. Myra held the phone like a lifeline, her knuckles white. I leaned back against the counter, arms tight across my chest. That text, Eli's still in town, bragging that you two were meant to be, that your parents promised him everything, hung between us all like smoke in a burning room. Myra's lips trembled. What does that mean? She'd asked Daphne again. And now? Now, she was afraid of the answer. So was I. Because no matter what came next, the damage was already done. Daphne didn't flinch. She just tilted her head, that smug little smile playing at the corner of her lips, the one she wore when she thought she was winning. We may have encouraged him, she said, calm and smug, like she was commenting on paint swatches. But he misunderstood. We just gave him a little gift. Invited him to dinner. Nothing criminal, Myra. I almost choked on the air. A little gift? Dinner? This wasn't some casual introduction. They'd flown her out, dressed her up, sat her beside this guy at every meal like she was an accessory, and now they wanted to pretend it was harmless? Myra's head snapped back like she'd been slapped. Her mouth hung open, eyes wide. You promised him I'd leave my fiancé, she said, voice rising and shaking. Daphne shrugged, as if it meant nothing. We wanted what's best for you. Eli's a good man. Comes from a respectable family. We figured you'd realize it in time. I stood there, jaw tight, fists clenched at my sides. Best for her. Right. This wasn't about love. Or happiness. It was about image. Status. Control. Myra turned toward me, pale and shaking, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. I didn't know, she said again, softer this time. I swear, Leo, I didn't know they were planning this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and all I could see were those pictures burned into my mind. Her laughing at Eli's jokes. His hand around her back. Her leaning in. Not resisting. You didn't know? I asked, voice low. But you didn't stop it either, did you? She flinched. Her hands twisted together like she was trying to wring the guilt out of her fingers. It wasn't like that, she whispered. I thought it was just friendly. I didn't think. You didn't think? I stepped toward her, the words sharp now. You didn't think it looked bad to let some guy wrap his arm around you while your parents played matchmaker? You didn't think to call me? Just once? Let me know what was going on. Her head shook fast, and the tears finally fell. I didn't want to worry you, she said. I thought it was nothing. Just, my mom and dad being them. I let out a bitter laugh. Them? The same people who think our relationship is some mistake they can repackage with a better offer? Daphne cut in, her voice suddenly sharp. That's enough, she said, pointing at me. You're blowing this out of proportion. No one forced her. She could have walked away. Walked away? I snapped, my voice rising for the first time. You flew her out there. Set her up in a hotel with this guy. Fed her your version of the future. What was she supposed to do, hitchhike home while you two whispered in her ear? Greg finally cleared his throat, looking up from his phone, his expression unreadable. And just like that, the last mask in the room dropped. Let's calm down, Greg said, his tone flat, detached. No one's saying we planned a breakup. We just thought she'd see reason. Reason. That word hit like a brick to the ribs. So I was the problem now, the irrational one. The guy she said yes to. The one who'd been waiting like a fool while her parents played matchmaker behind my back. Myra sank into the chair behind her, her hands covering her face. I can't believe this, she muttered. I can't believe you'd do this to me. Daphne sighed, like the whole thing was exhausting. Like betrayal was just another family errand she had to explain. Myra, we've always wanted what's best for you, she said, voice soft with practiced concern. This marriage, it was rushed. We didn't have time to guide you. Guide me? Myra's head snapped up, voice sharp, cracking around the edges. You think setting me up with someone a week before the wedding is guidance? I watched her closely, wondering if she'd eventually turn that fury on me. Maybe blame me for pulling back the curtain, for airing the truth like dirty laundry. But she didn't. She didn't even look at me like she blamed me at all. She just stared at her parents like she didn't recognize them anymore. I didn't sleep with him, she said suddenly, eyes locking onto mine. Leo, I didn't. I would never do that. Her voice broke then, and I could see it, all of it, guilt, fear, the desperate need for me to believe her. I didn't speak. I just gave her a single nod. Not agreement, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Maybe she didn't sleep with Eli. But she'd let him close. She'd let them all get close. And somehow, that made it worse. The silence that followed was heavy, like it was sitting on our chests. Daphne adjusted her purse. Greg tapped his phone like the rest of us didn't exist. Myra wiped her eyes and looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 minutes. I stayed where I was, still leaning against the counter. Watching her try to make sense of what had been done to us. And wondering if she'd ever really been mine at all. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen staring at the coffee pot, hoping a strong brew could somehow fix a broken future. I'd slept on the couch. Not because she asked, but because I couldn't take the smell of her on the pillows. Couldn't pretend things were okay. The folder still sat on the dining table, edges curled, photos sticking out like a wound that refused to close. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. If Daphne and Greg wanted a spectacle, I'd give them one. But it would be on my terms. I sent out short texts, to Myra, Daphne, Greg, Eli, and a few close friends who'd watched us toast to forever. Photo shoot at the venue. One last memory from the big day. Be there at 6. Daphne replied right away with a chipper, oh, how lovely. We'll be there. Myra's response was slower, more hesitant. Is this really necessary? She asked. I didn't sugarcoat it. Yeah. I typed. It's time people knew the truth. She didn't argue after that. Just replied with a soft, okay. The rest confirmed quickly, Leona, Marcus, a few cousins who'd slow danced with us under the string lights during what was supposed to be a celebration of forever. Even Eli RSVP'd with a cocky, wouldn't miss it. I smirked. Good. Let him walk right into it. That evening, I arrived early to the venue, the same place where we were supposed to get married next week. The big open barn with rustic beams, soft uplighting, and a view of the ocean through the high windows. The place I thought would mark our beginning. I brought my laptop, hooked it to a projector, and laid out every file Marcus had dug up. Photos. Videos. Receipts. I stacked them on the reception table, yes, the same one where we'd cut a practice cake just a few days ago. Leona was the first to arrive, giving me a silent nod like she already knew what this night was. Then Marcus, who clapped my shoulder. "You sure about this, man?" I nodded. "Yeah. No more hiding." Then Daphne and Greg showed up. She wore pearls like she was arriving at a fundraiser, and he was in his usual tailored suit, already scrolling through his phone. Myra came in right behind them, her eyes catching mine for a split second before darting away. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the week had collapsed her shoulders. I didn't soften. Not yet. Then came Eli, with a sun-kissed smirk and that smug air he always carried. "Nice spot," he said, giving Myra a wink. She didn't smile back. I waited until everyone found a seat, about 20 people in total, some tense, some just confused, then stepped up to the front. "Thanks for coming," I said, voice calm. "Thought we'd take a look back at the wedding week and everything that's happened since." I clicked the projector. The first slide appeared, me and Myra, cutting the cake, laughing. A few smiles from the crowd. But I didn't linger. Next slide, Scottsdale. Myra at the pool. Eli beside her, arm draped casually across her shoulders. A ripple of murmurs moved through the room. Click. Dinner. Eli leaning in. Daphne laughing. Click. Beach walk. Click. Drinks. Hotel receipts. Whispers turned to gasps. Eyes flicked toward Myra, toward her parents. She sank in her chair, face buried in her hands. Daphne's smile had tightened, but she didn't move. Eli stopped smiling. Then I played the video. Marcus had filmed it from a distance. Daphne's voice rang out, clear as glass. "This marriage is just a phase. Eli's the real future." The room went dead silent, like someone had cracked open a vacuum and sucked the air out. I let the words hang there, echoing in the wooden beams above us. Then I turned off the projector. "That's it," I said, crossing my arms. "That's what they've been up to while I've been here, thinking I had a future. Thinking I had a girlfriend who wanted the same damn thing I did." Myra jumped to her feet, her chair scraping harsh against the floor. "I didn't know," she shouted, her voice breaking. "I didn't plan this." I stared at her, heart pounding. "Maybe not," I said quietly. "But you didn't stop it either." Daphne's voice cut in, sharp and scolding. "This is ridiculous. You're blowing this way out of proportion." Eli leaned back in his chair, trying to keep his casual act going. "Yeah, man. Chill. It's not like we." "You don't get to talk," I snapped, turning on him. My voice came out harder than I expected. He blinked, surprised, and then shut up, sinking into his seat. A ripple moved through the room. Friends whispering. Cousins shifting uncomfortably. Leona stood, arms crossed, fire in her eyes. "You people are unbelievable," she said, glaring at Daphne and Greg. "She's getting married, and you're treating her like she's a listing in a high-end catalog." Greg finally spoke, calm and calculated. "It's not like that. We just thought Eli deserved a chance to get to know her. Nothing more." I laughed. One short, bitter sound. "A chance? You flew her out. You booked her a room. You set up dinners, drinks, spa days, and told him she'd come around. That's not a chance. That's a promise." Now the truth sat in the middle of the room like something rotting. Heavy. Sour. I stood there in the heart of that venue, projector still humming behind me, the cake table repurposed as a courtroom, and I wondered if I'd just burned everything down, or set myself free. The silence was thick. It coated the walls. People didn't know where to look. Myra was still standing, shaking, eyes brimming with tears. She said it again, softer this time. I didn't know. But it didn't land like it used to. Maybe not, I repeated, quieter now. But you didn't stop it either. She sank back down, burying her face in her hands. Daphne straightened her posture, her voice shrill now. This is absurd. All this drama for nothing. Eli chimed in, his bravado barely hanging on. It's not like we. Shut up, I said again. My voice was calm. Final. He raised his hands and shut his mouth. Whispers buzzed louder now. People glaring at Daphne and Greg. Leona looked like she was ready to throw something. Then Myra lifted her head and finally turned to her parents. Mom. Dad, she said, her voice low, trembling. What the hell did you do? Did you pay him? Myra asked, each word slow, heavy, like she was already dreading the answer. Greg finally put his phone down, his face unreadable. A few gifts, he said with a shrug. A weekend suite. It's not illegal. Eli chimed in, his voice smaller now. I thought it was love, he said, glancing toward Myra. She spun on him, fire in her eyes. Love? You thought I'd just walk away from my fiancé because you showed up with a tan and a smile? I couldn't help it. A short, bitter laugh slipped out. Guess he's not as clever as your parents made him out to be. Eli's face turned red, but he didn't respond. Myra turned to me again, eyes wide and wet. I didn't know, she whispered, stepping closer. Leo, I swear. I didn't sleep with him. I didn't. But you didn't stop it, I said, my voice flat. You let it happen. She blinked like I'd slapped her. You smiled, you laughed, you shared drinks. You let them choose your future like I wasn't even in the room. She reached out, fingers brushing mine, but I pulled away. Don't, I said. Her arm dropped like it had suddenly become too heavy to hold. The room was spinning now, everyone talking at once. Voices rising. Tension boiling over. Eli suddenly turned toward Daphne, his calm gone. You said she wanted out, he barked, jabbing a finger at her. Daphne's mask finally cracked. She would have, if he hadn't stuck his nose where it didn't belong, she snapped, pointing straight at me like I was the villain. I didn't respond. I just stood there, watching the chaos unfold. Leona stepped forward, arms folded. You're disgusting, she said to Daphne. She's your daughter, not a product you upgrade when you don't like the packaging. Several cousins nodded in agreement. Jake, one of mine, called out from the back, what kind of parents pull this crap? Daphne whipped around, shouting back. We were protecting her future. He's not good enough. She pointed at me again. And that was it. The room exploded. People shouting. Chairs scraping back. Myra crying now, louder, her voice cracking as she pleaded, stop it, please stop it, just stop. But I didn't move. Didn't yell. Just stood still, letting them tear each other apart. Greg raised his hands, trying to calm the storm. Everyone, please, let's settle down, this isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, I said, my voice slicing through the noise. You tried to sell my girlfriend to some rich kid because I wasn't enough for you. And she let you try, I said, staring right at Myra. She sobbed, shaking her head. I didn't mean to. But you did, I cut in, steady. You didn't call me. You didn't walk away. You stayed. She crumpled, dropping into her chair again, her hands covering her face like the truth was too heavy to look at. Eli stood abruptly, grabbing his jacket. I'm out, he muttered, already making for the door. You people are insane. Daphne shouted after him. You're not innocent here. But he didn't stop. Didn't even glance back. Cousins were arguing with Greg, Leona was still ripping into Daphne, and Myra, she just sat there. Quiet. Shaking. Broken. I stepped back toward the table, leaning against it. The folder still sat open behind me, photos spilling out like spilled secrets. The truth was out now, ugly, loud, and public. And somehow, I didn't feel better. I just felt empty. Everyone knew. But it didn't fix a damn thing. Myra looked up at me, eyes swollen and desperate, searching for something, forgiveness, maybe, or a sign that this could still be saved. But I didn't have that to give. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I just shook my head. The room spun with chaos, voices crashing off the walls, but I tuned it out. It was their mess now. I'd done what I came to do. 2 weeks later, I stood in my kitchen, stirring a pot of soup I didn't even want. Just something to keep my hands busy. The fallout hit fast, like a storm I'd set off but couldn't stop. Myra moved out the next morning. Packed a bag, didn't make eye contact. Said she needed space. I didn't argue. Didn't ask her to stay. I just stood there, watching her leave, the front door clicking shut like punctuation on a sentence that had gone on too long. The house was quiet after that. Too quiet. But at least it wasn't fake anymore. Daphne and Greg did their best to spin it. Calling friends, relatives, trying to frame it all as mutual. They just weren't compatible, Daphne had said, according to my cousin Jake. Voice full of sugar and sympathy, like she was the one who'd been hurt. Compatible. That word burned on the way down. They didn't care about compatibility when they were setting Myra up for champagne dinners and beach walks with Eli. But it didn't take long for their little lie to unravel. Eli couldn't keep his mouth shut. He started posting photos from Aspen. Him and Myra, poolside. At dinner. Laughing on the beach. One caption read, "Good times with good people," that smug grin plastered across his face. Then came the video, Eli laughing, saying, "Her parents knew we were the real deal." Leona saw it first. Texted me a screenshot. "This idiot's digging his own grave." She wasn't wrong. The story spread like wildfire. Friends shared it. Family called me, confused, angry, asking what the hell was going on. Then it hit X, posts, threads, screenshots. People I'd never met dissecting the whole thing like it was a courtroom case. Who sets their kid up like that? One post read, "This is next-level manipulation," said another. Daphne's event planning business took a hit. Vendors pulled out. Clients bailed. Some even left reviews saying they wouldn't work with someone who could betray their own daughter. Greg got dropped from a board he'd been on, some private email about misalignment with core values. And Eli? He vanished. Deleted his accounts, nuked his socials, went silent the moment the backlash hit. I didn't feel sorry for any of them. They built this. Now they had to live in it. Myra reached out 2 weeks later. A text popped up while I was eating alone at the table, the quiet hum of the microwave still in the air. "Can we talk?" I stared at it a long time, my thumb hovering above the screen. Part of me wanted to leave it on read, let her feel the same silence I'd been drowning in. But I wasn't that guy. Not yet. "Sure," I replied. "Come by tomorrow." She showed up at noon. Worn down. Standing on the porch like she didn't know if the door would open. I let her in, pointed to the couch, and sat across from her in the armchair. She looked drained, hair pulled back in a lazy knot, circles under her eyes. She hadn't been sleeping, that much was clear. "I'm sorry," she started, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I didn't see what they were doing until it was too late." I nodded, letting her speak. "I didn't want Eli," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I didn't want any of it. I didn't know how to stop them. They've always been like that, controlling, pushy. I should have told you. I should have left." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." She flinched. I didn't soften it. "You weren't just with me, Myra. You were with them. Every step of the way, they had their hands on your choices, and you let them." Her eyes welled up. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. I messed up, she said. I know I did. But I love you, Leo. I still do. The words hit me like a punch I wasn't ready for. I looked at her, really looked. I saw the girl I danced with under those string lights. And I saw the girl in those photos. Both real. Both hers. And I didn't know which one was sitting in front of me. I believe you, I said at last, slow and careful. But that doesn't fix it. She looked up, tears clinging to her lashes. You didn't fight for us, Myra. You didn't even try. My voice cracked a little, but I held firm. I can't forget that. She sobbed harder, nodding like she'd expected it all along. I don't know how to make it right, she whispered. You can't, I said, standing up. Not now. Maybe not ever. She stayed for a while, talking, crying, begging me for a chance to fix it. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. When she left, the house went still again. Not broken anymore, just quiet. I sat in the silence, staring at the dent in the couch cushion where she'd been. I wasn't mad anymore. Not like before. I just felt done. The world knew the truth now. So did I. That was enough, for today, at least. A month passed. A month since Myra moved out. A month since the projector lit up the truth for everyone to see. Since Daphne, Greg, and Eli scattered like smoke. Tonight, I stood in the same venue, where Myra and I were supposed to get married next week. But this time, it felt different. The weight was gone. The air was clean. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to let it go. No Daphne. No Greg. No Eli. No Myra. Just the ones who mattered. I'd invited my real people, family, friends, the ones who showed up when things fell apart. The room smelled like cake and coffee. Warm. Honest. Familiar. Nothing fake. I'd pushed a few tables together. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs, a spread of food, and a playlist I built with songs that didn't sting. Leona arrived first, pulling me into a tight hug. You look better, she said. I smiled, really smiled. I feel better. Marcus came in next, handed me a cold beer, clapped me on the back. Proud of you, man, he said. Takes guts to burn it all down and walk away. I nodded, twisting the cap off. Didn't feel like guts. Just felt like surviving. Then came my cousins, Jake and Sarah, grinning like I'd just won something. My buddy Tom from work, he'd texted me every day since the blowout, just checking in. Even my mom showed up, bossing people around, telling me I was too thin and needed to eat more. It wasn't a big crowd, 20 people maybe, but it was enough. The room filled with laughter, the sound of cutlery, clinking glasses, overlapping stories. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like the guy everyone pitied. I just felt okay. Leona told everyone how she'd ripped into Daphne that night, sending the room into laughter. Marcus bragged about his stealth footage, calling himself the family spy. It was light. Easy. The kind of night I hadn't felt since before the wedding planning ever started. After a while, I stood up, tapped my beer bottle with a spoon. A soft hush fell over the table. The room quieted down, everyone turning to look at me as I tapped my bottle once more against the edge of my glass. I took a breath. Hey, thanks for coming, I said, voice steady. I know the past few months have been a lot. There were a few nods, a couple of murmured yes. You've all seen it, the good, the bad, the humiliating, and you're still here. That means something. Some smiles, a little laughter. I went on, eyes scanning the faces that mattered most to me now. I thought losing Myra was the end of me, you know? Like I'd failed at the one thing I wanted most. But I've figured something out. I paused, holding my beer up. Sometimes a broken promise is a blessing in disguise. They raised their drinks with me. I finished it. To starting over. Cheers echoed back, and I took a long sip, letting those words settle deep in my chest. It wasn't just talk. I meant it. Losing Myra hurt like hell, but staying tied to her family, to the deception, the control, the games, would have been worse. I sat back down, and the night rolled on. Someone cut the cake, the playlist turned upbeat, and Jake pulled me into a ridiculous dance that had me stepping on his foot 3 times. He laughed harder each time. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was mine. Later, I slipped out onto the balcony for some air. Leaned against the same railing where Myra and I once stood, back when I thought we were forever. I could still see her, white dress, wind in her hair, looking up at me like I was everything. For a second, it stung. But then I let it go. She wasn't here. And I didn't need her to be. I'd spent too many nights replaying the laughter with Eli, the way Daphne smirked like she owned the ending, Greg's blank indifference. But tonight, I didn't feel bitter. I felt awake. Leona joined me, hands stuffed in her coat pockets. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, better than good." She smiled. "She's still asking about you, you know. Myra called me yesterday. Wanted to know if you'd softened." I shrugged. "Doesn't matter. I'm done looking back." She bumped my shoulder. "That's my boy." We stood there for a bit, silent. The sounds of celebration drifted from inside. When I walked back in, they were still laughing, still celebrating. I grabbed another slice of cake, sat beside Marcus and Tom, and let myself laugh too. This wasn't the ending I planned. But it was better. It was free. And that was worth toasting to. If you've made it this far, then you've seen everything, the lies, the betrayal, the silence, the heartbreak. You've walked through it with me, step by step, and maybe you felt what I felt when the truth came crashing down. If you did, I want to ask you something simple: don't let people like that write your story. If you've ever been made to feel small, dismissed, or not good enough by someone who thinks they know what's best for you, fight back, not with fists, but with truth. Stand tall. Speak up. And when it hurts, when it really hurts, don't run. Sit in it. Learn from it. And then rise. That's what I did, and it damn near broke me. But I'm still standing. If you believe in second chances, not for people who betrayed you, but for yourself, then stand with me. Drop a comment. Tell me what you'd say to someone like Daphne, or Eli, or even Myra. Share a time you chose yourself when everyone else thought they could choose for you. And if you're still in it, still with someone who's pulling your strings or dimming your light, hear me when I say, you deserve better. Love doesn't hide. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't ask you to become smaller so someone else can feel bigger. That night, in front of friends and family, I let go of a future I thought I couldn't live without, and what I found was freedom. So here's my advice: don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to burn the script and write a new one. The people who matter will still be there when the smoke clears. Just like mine were. Just like you are now.